Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Editorial Edge. Thank God it's Friday. We have reached Friday of this week, and I have three very important topics for you. Okay. So, without further delay, because we have three topics, and all of them will require a little bit of understanding. Okay. So, we'll just get straight into it. Good morning, Alekha Senapati. Welcome. Welcome. All right. So, the first topic that I have for you is to do with the abolition of cantonments. Now, if you must have noticed, hi Bipen, good morning, good morning. So, if you must have noticed, there are say around articles that you will find in the recent, just in the last month. Many a times, many individuals have written articles, editorials on the logic behind abolition of cantonments. Now, as UPSC aspirants, you are supposed to understand firstly, what are cantonments, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, okay? And please realize that there are people involved in this conversation. So what eventually changes on the ground for them? So we'll take a look at that. Okay. Good morning, Bipen, Rajan, Pratik, Joja, Jyoti. Welcome, welcome. Each one of you. Thanks for joining this morning. Okay. So we'll take a look at cantonments first. Thereafter, this article I've taken from the ORF. So I'll share the article link also in my Telegram channel. Okay. I'll share the article link, especially with regards to this one, the zoonotic diseases. Okay. So this is again very important because see this is essentially zoonotic diseases are the ones that can be communicated from say animal to man, animal to human beings. Okay. So you straight away realize that it's important considering COVID-19 pandemic. And plus you have to realize yesterday, 6th of July, it was the World Zoonosis Day, which was essentially a day to raise awareness and for more collaboration on an international platform level for prevention of such kind of diseases. So that will be our third agenda for the day. Okay, we'll take a look at zoonotic diseases. I'll share the article link for these two in my Telegram channel, which you can join if you were to scan this. Okay, and this article is from the Indian Express of today, front page article. So we'll take a look at fact checking. Okay, what's PIB's history? Press Information Bureau, a major agency of the Government of India. So what's the history of the Press Information Bureau? And what's this recent problem that has come up? In fact, I think it's the Bombay High Court that is adjudicating on whether what's the locus standi of PIB as far as fact checking is concerned. You know, does it have a locus standi? Does it have an actual basis, a ground for standing on when it goes ahead and fact checks as a representative or an organization of the Government of India, right? So that's going to be our agenda. We'll get straight into it. If you haven't so already, please consider liking the stream. Okay, it's my dili khwahish that someday my stream will cross 50 likes. So let's see, we'll achieve it someday soon. Okay, all right, let's get into it. So first, whenever we are supposed to understand a particular topic, what we are going to do is take it question wise. So first I present before you a topic, a question from the 2017 UPSC prelims. Okay, hi Bulbul, good morning each one of you. Okay, so have a look at this question, guys. Local self-government can be best described as an exercise in what? Federalism, democratic decentralization, administrative delegation, or direct democracy? Let me know your answers. Okay, first understand, even if you do not know the answer, no problem. What you're supposed to know though is, what's the difference between all of them individually? Okay, and that information will come through rigorous studying of the static books. Static books are very important, you know. So if 60 seconds, if I have to explain to you how you should be beginning right now. Okay, if your Sarkari bungalow is to be built in this next 1 year, then the foundation will come from the NCERT. Unless you are studying the NCERT, there is no foundation. Thereafter, the bigger structure will be built through the static subjects. And the joints, the linkages will be formed by current affairs. So this is what you should be focusing on. Right now you are at this level. Go ahead, start with the NCERTs, guys. Okay, if you do not know the answer to this, my advice is go back, like Swami Vivekananda went to the Vedas, right? You go back to the NCERTs. Or was it Raja Ram Mohan Roy? Who was it? Tell me in the chat. Who said the quote, back to the Vedas? Was it Ram Mohan Roy or Swami Vivekananda? Let me know. Okay. So, yes, those of you who have answered, good. Salik Anwar, welcome. Very good morning to you, sir. Okay. Pratik, you are correct. Rajan, you are correct too. Good answers. This is essentially to do with center state, you know. the division of power, responsibilities, everything in the center state connotation. That is federalism. Democratic decentralization is the making sure that power percolates down to the ground level, which means a local self-governance. What's that? What's happening there? You are giving power in the hands of the people. Okay, so that is it. That's democratic decentralization. Administrative delegation is a day-to-day process. So, example, if I am your chief secretary and if you are my officer, I'll say, okay, you know what? You go ahead and do this for me. Administrative delegation. An official order is passed saying, okay, you will represent the state in some conference and say whatever. Administrative delegation. Okay. And direct democracy is what happens when people are directly taking part in the process of policy making. Good, Rajan. Thank God. Thank God. Good. Pratik, Bulbul also. Good answers. Okay. So this is from previous year 2017. And look at this now. This is for today's question. This is for today's StudyIQ MCQ. So let me note to this also. Cantonments comprise military areas only. Military stations comprise both civilian and military areas. Cantonment board is co-chaired by the commanding officer and the district magistrate. Let's see. Who is it? Vivekananda or Dayanand Saraswati or Raja Rammohan Roy? We have so much of confusion in the chat. You shouldn't be confused. These are basic quotes, guys. Okay. Let's start with the topic. Cantonments, finally. So if you have seen across the country, okay, you have areas that are called cantonments. Now these cantonments are essentially notified under a particular act. Okay, that's the act is the Cantonment Act 2006. Now why is it formed? Because you have, say, both civilian and military population co-inhabiting a cantonment area. So for example, if you have been to Delhi, if you have been to New Delhi, you will realize that there is a massive cantonment near Dholakua. Okay, the area is called Delhi Cant. Okay, or if you have been to, say, the major cities, so if you have, say, the Meerut Cant, Ambala Cant, these are areas where, say, military people are co-inhabiting with the civilian population. So to govern that area, okay, that is done under Cantonments Act 2006, which essentially provides municipal services for those civilians who are living in that area. Okay. Now, the controlling authority for cantonments is the Ministry of Defence. It is notified or denotified by the union government. Okay. So the creation or the dismantling of it depends on the union government, whereas the day-to-day functioning of it, or at least the larger policy making, is done by the Ministry of Defence, which has its own representatives on the ground. Okay. So unlike other urban local bodies which are created and administered by the state government, cantonments are created by the union government, also administered by the union government. समझ रहे हैं आप लोग? Thank God. 2 people have given me the correct answer. That's Hall of Tech, Rajan Kumar. Thank God. Good answers. Okay, Swami Vivekananda is known for the 1893 Chicago speech. Okay, where he talked about the unity and the India way, the India philosophy. He narrated on that. It's a very interesting speech. In fact, you should learn from it. You go ahead and look at the transcript of that speech. 1893 Chicago speech. Okay. So unlike other, so you have other urban local bodies, so you have, say, townships, you have your municipal bodies. All of these are essentially created by the state government. They are responsible for the management of it also, creation, dismantling of it also. But when it comes to cantonments, it's created or dismantled, destroyed by the union government. And at the same time, the day-to-day functioning of it is carried out by the union government. It's essentially done in consonance with the principles that are laid down by the union government. Okay. So a cantonment board is set up because obviously you need to govern that particular area. You have both the military people as well as the civilian population. So the cantonment board consists of partly elected and partly nominated members. In fact, it's an 8-member board. Okay. It's an 8-member board where you have, say, the CO plus representatives from the army institutions, say garrison engineer, okay, all of those individuals, plus you have a representative of the district magistrate, okay, plus you have other members. Fine. Do you realize that? So now who is the chairperson of this board that is set up? The commanding officer. Now understand this divergence here from the perspective of writing a mains answer. That a commanding officer, which is a serving officer, a senior officer of the Indian Army, he or she must have entered at lieutenant colonel level, gone up, promoted, showed their capability, become a commanding officer of a unit. Now please understand, are they trained to essentially do justice to the responsibility that is being put on them? They must have graduated from say NDA or IMA, and different kind of training is provided for the army. But here suddenly they are thrown in a situation where they have to take care of the day-to-day management of a population, a civilian area, an area which has civilians in it. First problem with the cantonment boards. Okay, so the CEO of the station, the commanding officer of the unit or the station, he is the ex officio chairperson of the cantonment board. Ex officio matlab kya hota hai? That he holds this position to the tenure that he has. So if you were there for say January 1st, 2023 till January 1st, 2025 as the CEO of your unit, for 2 years you will be the ex officio. As soon as you're transferred out, the next person comes in, the next person assumes the responsibility of the CEO or the person who is in charge of the cantonment board. That's ex officio. Okay. So at the same time, you also have a CEO of the board. Okay. So you have a chairperson and then you have a CEO who is an officer of the Indian Defence Estate Service, which is again you enter through the UPSC. So you are responsible for the policy making. You are responsible for the overarching framework. Okay. So an officer of the IDES is also there. Now historically, if you take a look, Meerut was the first cantonment in India and Ajmer the last one to be formed in 1962. Okay. So a total of 62 cantonments right now are there in India. Okay. Out of those, 56 were formed pre-independence. Don't write. We have these facts in the slide for you. Just understand this first. Okay. 56 of them were formed pre-independence. 6 were formed post-independence. Now please understand, why is it that 56 were formed pre-independence? Tell me, as any aware student, you should quickly understand and form the correlation out of the statistic I gave you. Because again, Indian Army is a colonial legacy. It's a legacy organization. Do you realize? It has existed pre-independence. So tell me, what are the other legacy organizations that you can think of, guys? That have existed and are existing today and have existed since before independence. What are the legacy organizations? One is obviously the Indian Army. Let me see how many of you can quickly correlate this. I'm just not going to teach you about cantonment. I'm going to teach you about so many other things if you just pay attention for 1 hour. Yes? What is a legacy organization? Can someone tell me this quickly? So you have other organizations. Think of it. Indian Army was there. You also have, say, something like All India Radio. Existed before independence? Yes or no? India Post existed before independence? So many of these organizations that exist today, you will find that they have been existing since before independence. So they are called the legacy organizations. Okay? Correct? Administrative department, police, railway. So these are the legacy organizations. Now some organizations are not legacy organizations. Say ISRO came after the independence. Okay? So know the difference, because if UPSC asks you to identify the legacy organizations, understand that it means that the formation of that particular body or organization is of the pre-independence era. Okay? Alright. Let's go forward. So now understand the difference between cantonment and military station. This difference is essential for you to understand from the prelims perspective. Okay. So cantonments are civilian areas. Get that thought out of your head that it's a military area. No. It's considered to be a civilian area that are under the control of the military, and they have both civilian population and the military people living there. Fine. Military stations are purely military. So you have, say, Sukna military station. Can someone tell me where is the Sukna military station? Tell me. How many of you know about the Sukna military station? It's always in the news because some elephant will be entering that place. I've given you a huge hint. Some elephant will enter the Sukna military station and thereafter cause minor damage. Which state has the Sukna military station? Quickly, guys. Let's make it interactive. Today's class is very interesting, in fact. Extremely interesting. You know, it's going to be a learning experience because again, it's to do with a topic that you should know. Most of you must be aware of, say, military stations or cantonment areas around where you stay, no? So you must know about it. Okay. So Sukna military station, military stations are purely military, where only military personnel and their families reside. Okay. So no people, no persons, no civilian areas allowed there. Correct, Rajan Kumar, West Bengal, not Kerala, Deepak. Sukna is in West Bengal. In fact, if you have studied about the chicken's neck, okay, if you have studied about the chicken's neck or heard about it, that there is a small area that of Indian territory that essentially is the neck that connects, say, mainland India to northeast, which is the area around Siliguri, the Siliguri corridor it is called. Okay. Siliguri से अगर आप जब दार्जिलिंग जाते हो ना, when you go from Siliguri to Darjeeling, you will realize that you cross Sukna military station. As soon as you start climbing for the Darjeeling hills, at the very base is the Sukna military station. The Siliguri corridor, okay? So, cantonments are notified under the Cantonment Act. Military stations are established by an executive order. Huge difference, guys. Prelims perspective, a slide that you should consider important. So many questions can be found from here. Think. So many identify the correct statements I can form from this particular slide only. Right? Okay, let's go forward. So why are cantonments in the news now? Now, like I told you, the government has this proposal that they are going to convert all the cantonment areas into military stations, which means that there is going to be a bifurcation. There's going to be a bifurcation. So we'll look at it now. What's the bifurcation about? So the Union government issued a notification for the abolition of Yawl cantonment in Himachal Pradesh. Make a note of this. Where is the Yawl cantonment in Himachal Pradesh? Okay. Now the plan is that we will disband all cantonments after carrying out the military areas and declaring them exclusive military stations. So you have, say, a particular area. Look at this. Let me just clean this up, then you'll understand this better. So you have a particular cantonment. This is my cantonment. Now you have military people living on a particular side. You have the civilian population living on the particular side. Okay. So you are going to essentially carve out this whole area. This becomes an exclusive military station. This goes and becomes a part of the urban local body, say the local municipality. This is what the proposal is. Just in one figure if you have to understand. Okay. Are you able to get this, guys? This is the plan. That if you have a cantonment area, so you have, say, the military people and the civilian population, you are going to divide it. You will just make exclusive military stations for military facilities and personnel, whereas that particular civilian area, that goes and becomes a part of the urban local body, so the municipality or whatever it might be. Correct? Yes, Hall of Tech, you're absolutely correct. Siliguri corridor is in West Bengal. Okay. West Bengal, absolutely correct. Okay. Absolutely. It's, in fact, if you look at it from Siliguri, Bangladesh is not very far. You know, you have the Dinhata border near Kuch Bihar, not very far. Then from the Siliguri to Nepal border is another 1 hour maximum. From Siliguri to Bhutan border, again, right there, not very far. From Siliguri to China border, you just have to go to Nathula Pass. It's maximum 5 hours, 6 hours. You cross Gangtok, Nathula border. You realize? So it's so many countries are right now at your vicinity, which is why that particular area becomes critical. Okay. Got it? Okay. So this is the plan, guys. You're going to bifurcate this. Now the areas of the cantonment that would stand severed from the military, they will become part of the urban local body. So the civilian population goes to the civilian governance. This proposal will cover all 62 cantonments across the country. 56, like I told you, set up pre-independence, 6 post-independence. Now why were they set up? So realize when not the Americans, when the British came in, okay. So now after say the Battle of Plassey, once they decided to expand slowly, okay, they needed military bases. They needed like this chhavni they call. In Hindi it is called chhavni. Okay. In fact, there is a portal also. The India government has launched a portal called e-chhavni. Earlier this year, e-chhavni was launched. Okay, this in English will be this, something like this. So a portal was launched called e-chhavni, which was essentially to make sure that all the civilian grievance was taken care of. So now the Britishers at that time, they started making these chhavnis, these small military bases, because they needed to conquer land. Now once you have a military, realize it's not just say 2,000 soldiers living there. They require a lot of back-end support. Daily food, eggs, milk, water, services, tailoring. It's like a mini town that is living there. So you need back-end services which the civilian people provide. So over a course of time, you had the military people which were provided services on a day-to-day basis by the civilian population, all living together. Now this was okay till say a certain point of time. But now that you have come so far, 2023, now this is becoming a problem. Now what are the problems? We will discuss in today's class. But first understand the concept of why was it formed. Okay? Because you have the military that requires support on a day-to-day basis. It can't function in isolation. Okay? So let's go forward. Now look at it. Where is the highest number of cantonments in India? Highest you find is in central, followed by southern. Why do you think this is, guys? Why do you think the highest number of cantonments are in this area? Why not in the northern areas? Why not in the eastern areas? After all, the Britishers majorly conquered Bengal. No? They were ruling from Bengal, the whole country. So why not in Bengal? Why is Bengal at 4th position here? Because essentially you wanted safe havens. These chhavnis later on became the back end. So you had frontline forces, and then you had these military stations where war preparedness would be carried out, training would be carried out. Okay. So this was the concept. So where is the safest to make? You make in central India, far from all borders. Southern India, far from all land borders. Concept samajhiye. Why was it being done? What was being done? Okay. Then you had western, eastern, and obviously northern comes last because it's a very volatile border. Okay. So you don't want your preparedness centers, your training centers, your civilian population, your military families also living so close. Should be protected. Clear? Let's go forward now. So this conversation, are they an archaic colonial legacy? Archaic is outdated. Okay. Is it now, has it outlived its utility? Here is the fodder point for your mains answer, guys. If you're writing mains this year, make a note of this next 2 slides. Okay. Let's look at this. This was created by the EIC post-victory in the Battle of Plassey, and then the suzerainty. It went ahead, started expanding. So this was needed. You needed a military infrastructure in place. So as their area of control and rule expanded, more military stations and cantonments were created. Obviously. Hard power. They ruled by hard power, no? It was not through love that the Britishers ruled. They needed the military, which means more infrastructure was created. So the primary objective was the quartering of the troops. First was make a base. Let's keep our soldiers, our arms, our ammunitions, all of that in a particular consolidated manner. Okay? The troops, then they required back-end infrastructure. See, daily food. And food, in fact, is like vegetable, eggs, milk. Imagine for 2,000 people, suddenly a small village is there of 500 people. Now the English come in with 2,000 troops, make their own camp here. Imagine for them, the life changes overnight. Income source, straight away. But then the strain on the local resources. Massive strain. Okay. So the troops required back in infra, thus civilian population came up close by. This was the logic. This was how this marriage between civilian areas and military establishments happened. Okay. Most cantonments have a somewhat integrated and yet separate military area, the civil area, and then you have a local bazaar. Absolutely the way you should be, you should expect it. First the military will come. First the civilians would already be there. The military would come. Then you will have a bazaar, a common place where they would come, trade, negotiate, buy stuff, all of that. This is how it was formed. Now please understand this. I have used the word most because not all cantonments have this division so clearly demarcated. Okay, not all. So for example, Delhi cantonment. If you have been in that area, you will know it's closely integrated. Okay, Lucknow cantonment, closely integrated. There the civilian population and the military population, military families are so intertwined that it's going to be like, another Radcliffe line you'll have to draw. How will you do that? You can't draw a Radcliffe line in 2023 suddenly. Okay, it's that closely integrated. So now we'll look at it, what the problem is. The pros and cons. Okay, make a note of this. For military commanders, the CO, the ex officio chairperson. Okay, the excision, the removal of civilian areas would relieve them of the responsibilities of carrying out civilian functions. They are just not trained for it. Indian Army personnel are trained in a different realm altogether. Civilian population will have civilian day-to-day management problems. Imagine this now. Here you are a trained like a killing machine, and suddenly you are supposed to come in and administer a set of people. Taking decisions on non-military matters that affect the local population. So if you were to remove this, their job becomes easier. They are doing exactly what they are trained to do. They can focus more on the military matters rather than thinking कि किसके घर का पानी खत्म हो गया और रोड कहाँ बनाना है, क्या करना है. No, that's not their job. Okay. Considerable time of these ex officio chairpersons was taken up by these chores, distracting them from the primary duties of training and war preparedness. Now they can invest more time for training, for war preparedness, for making sure that, as a body, Indian Army is like exactly doing what it is supposed to do. Okay, leave the administration and the governance to, say, the urban local bodies. They'll take care of it. Okay. Better management, obviously, of all military stations, because straight away you are under the control of the army now. For civilians living in the cantonments now, how do they benefit? Well, how do they benefit? Now look at it. They also have a benefit also. So they are no more subject to the restrictive regulations. Now what are the restrictive regulations? If this is a cantonment area, if you have a house in the cantonment area, okay, you and I in, say, municipality bodies, when we live under the purview of the municipal bodies, we can lease our property, we can rent it out, we can do all of that. In cantonments you can't. Okay, so straight away, property holders, lease and rent, access, now more opportunity to do it. Okay. At the same time, because it's a sensitive military installation, there used to be arbitrary road closures. If some sensitive military equipment is going, they are not going to keep the road open, no? So now, with that division having happened, citizens don't have to get inconvenienced. Good for them. Okay. Civilians also get access to social welfare schemes, which were hitherto not available to them because development funds could not go to cantonments since the Ministry of Defence is in the non-plan sector. You see, they were not able to access social welfare schemes both by the central government and the state government. Why? Because the MOD is in the non-plan. Right? So the problems were so much for them, for the civilian population. So they will benefit out of this to a certain extent only now. Now the problems also we should see that, yes, okay, it's all hunky-dory. Our commanders will be better equipped, better, less hassle for them, more time for training. Civilians also, they'll win. But what's the problem now? Now let's look at the next slide. What is the fear? That the merger of cantonment areas in urban local bodies would in all probability lead to a sudden spurt in uncontrolled construction and commercialization. If you have seen, these cantonment areas are pristine areas. Because they have been untouched by this, no? They have strict rules in place. And it's because it's army controlled by the CO, he'll enforce those rules. So now, with it going to municipal bodies, we know how municipal bodies function. So straight away what you're looking at is that these pristine locations, some of it in hill stations, they are going to be commercialized like that. It'll be like the mess that the rest of the town is. Okay. Some of these cantonments are hill stations, and this would definitely go 100%. This will happen for sure, like massive commercialization, because it is prime real estate. If you have seen the cantonment areas in and around your place, you will see that they are located at a very prime real estate. So suddenly, if the real estate is being given now to the urban local body, to the state government, they are not going to hold back. They will develop it. Okay. At the same time, it is also true that many of the cantonment towns have had their economies stunted because lack of opportunities has been also there. This pristineness has come because there is a lack of opportunity, because development hasn't reached, okay, which means there was restriction on growth. Thus, people were moving out. So you have people who have moved out from many different cantonments and now are living in, say, the urban local body areas, right? So because of this, it was okay, pristine and all, very nice. But then if you don't have access to social welfare schemes, okay, if you can't lease out your own property, rent out your own property, what is the point? If you are subject to arbitrary road closures, right? And the most worrying part, however, of the merger is that our ULBs, our urban local bodies, our municipal bodies, they are grossly underfunded. What the fear is that they're anyways unable to handle the crowd right now, the population that they have to deal with right now. How will they deal with the oncoming extra population that is going to be their part of their responsibility? That is the whole worry. That, okay, sure, you can rent out your property, you can lease out your whole property. Yeah, you also will get access to social welfare schemes. But then you will be, dealing with the same problems the rest of the people are facing. So, minor problems, I'll tell you. So, in cantonment areas, if there is a problem of dengue, regular fogging and fogging will be done. That person who comes, that will be done for sure. Municipal bodies may be done, may not be done. You are at the mercy. Why? Because the municipal urban local bodies do not function at the level of efficiency that a cantonment does. Obviously, it's army, they'll be disciplined about it. Can you say the same for the municipal bodies? Not really. That is also a fear. Okay. That our towns and cities are already overstretched, and so extra population will add to the problem. This extra population coming up after the division of the civilian area, this will put more stress on the local level ecosystem. Are you able to understand these problems, guys? This is what you're going to be writing in your mains answers, by the way. If you're not including these points in your mains answers, it's going to be bad news. Clear? Is it clear for all of you first? Let me know. Is it clear for all of you? Do you understand the whole story of cantonment boards? What is it? Why is it? How is it? Kya problem hai? Now tell me the answer to this. Question number B. Let's have some answers, guys. Very, very quickly. Go ahead. And leave me a like if you understood the whole cantonment area problem, what the government is looking to do, okay, what are the challenges, how does the commanding officer benefit, how does the municipal body mess it all up. You should be aware of it. Okay, these are day-to-day challenges. You will notice policies are good and fine. Eventually, it's the people, like I told you at the beginning of the class. They will be facing the challenge. Okay. So the answer to this, cantonment areas comprise military areas only? No, they comprise both civilian plus military areas, which is why the cantonments are being abolished. Okay, to make sure that this is separated. Military stations comprise both civilian and military? No. Alright. Cantonment board is co-chaired? No. Only one person, the CO, is the chair. This is also incorrect. So identify incorrect statements, all three. All three are incorrect. Hi Ramesh. Welcome. Good to see you. Okay? All are incorrect, no? Military stations don't comprise both civilian and military. It's only military. Cantonments obviously comprise both. Clear? Let's go forward now, guys. Okay. Grab a sip of your chai before I tell you about the P2I program. Okay, I'm very happy to share with you that many students from the daily news analysis have signed up for it. I'm extremely thankful for your faith. Okay, we'll try and do best. But for those of you who haven't joined yet, well, you have another 3 days. Okay. After that, we begin early morning, 8 a.m. The first day is the orientation class, and thereafter begins your journey. Okay. And so, anyways, if you haven't signed up for this, and if you're really serious about next year, I think you should consider. Okay. Go ahead, go to studyiq.com today. Have a look, because eventually what we are doing in this 1 hour, guys, is going to be done on all topics. Now, why do I tell you? Why do I tell you to say, take at least like 2 topics per day? That's what we look to do, no? In the daily news analysis, we look at 2 topics per day. If we look at it for 28 days also, we are looking at close to 56 topics that you gain mastery in. Over a course of a year, close to 1200 topics you know in depth, from prelims till the interview level, in fact. So this is going to be a current affairs. The joints and links that I told you. NCRT, static, the joints and links. So 1200 topics are just the joints and links. Do you realize? So this is the way you're going to have a comprehensive preparation, which is the thrust of this whole course. So if you haven't, I suggest go ahead and sign up for this and use the code BALIVE, because then I become a part of your class, all right? And so I'll see many of you. I hope to see many of you. It will be a very learning process, plus you'll gain a lot out of it, okay? Go through StudyIQ, go to this website, have a look at this. I sincerely urge you, if you're really serious about next year, you should consider. Okay, let's look at the chat. Why is C not incorrect, Hall of Tech? Rajan, mains question I'll share. Bulbul, I'll share. I'll tell you the Bulbul, I'll tell you the question. Wait. Here, look at the question. I'll tell it 1 second. So the question is, cantonment areas comprise military areas only. First statement. Second statement, military stations comprise both civilian and military areas. Third statement, cantonment board is co-chaired by the commanding officer and district magistrate. So which of them are incorrect? Third is obviously incorrect because it's not co-chaired. Cantonment board is essentially just chaired by the CO, the commanding officer. Military stations, they are only military bodies, the military areas, whereas cantonment comprises both civilian plus military. So the 3 statements are incorrect. Okay. We'll move forward to the second topic, guys. Again, a very important topic to do with PIB. The Press Information Bureau. Okay, comes under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Okay, it's the premier agency for dissemination of information. It's the premier agency. That's what the Ministry of Information Broadcasting does. It's there in information broadcasting. It's to make sure that there is regulation insofar as the ecosystem is concerned. So Press Information Bureau is the nodal agency. Other agencies under Ministry of Information Broadcasting are, say, the Bureau of Public Outreach. Okay. Then you have autonomous organizations like Prasar Bharati, which obviously has, say, All India Radio and Doordarshan, which report to Ministry of Information Broadcasting. They're autonomous, but then the overall control is with the ministry. So you realize, so when PIB is involved in this public communication sphere, so the recent debate has come up that should Press Information Bureau get into the business of fact-checking. If you have been on, say, on Twitter, Facebook, you will see many individuals, organizations claiming to be fact-checkers, and then they will be fact-checking, whatever. That's what they do. So PIB set up a fact-checking unit, FCU, and then it said that if there is any particular false news that is going around, PIB will take a call on it, and finally the host, the particular company that is hosting that particular information will have to take it down. So straight away, civilians, all civil society, intellectuals, academia, the usual group, they were up in arms saying, okay, this is an attack on freedom of speech. What business does the government have to fact check? Now we'll look at both the angles of this, because as civil service aspirants, you can't be seen to be biased. Okay. You have to objectively assess both the arguments. First, is government attacking freedom of speech by having the FCU unit of Press Information Bureau? Secondly, what problems would arise if the government does not get into this realm of fact-checking? Can you leave fact-checking only to private individuals or organizations? Would that be ensuring transparency and accountability then? Both questions we will consider now. Okay. let's first look at the history of this press in India, just very quickly. Quick revision. So you had the Bengal Gazette that came up first in 1780, James Augustus Hickey. And there's a very interesting story in fact about him. So he was imprisoned because that time William Hastings' wife, Marian Hastings, he had accused Marian Hastings of favoring a rival newspaper. So Hickey came up with Bengal Gazette. There was a rival newspaper. And so that time, the Governor General, Mr. Warren Hastings, okay, he essentially made sure that Hickey was taken care of because apparently Mrs. Hastings had taken money. Okay. So in retaliation, Hastings' Supreme Council forbids Hickey from mailing his newspapers through the India Post. Through that time the post office. Legacy organization as we understood today. Okay. This happens. Now if you can't use the post service that time, there was no other way that you can get your circulation out. The only way you can get a newspaper to the consumer is through the postal service. If you're banned from using the postal service, तो क्या करेंगे newspaper का आप फिर? ठीक है? So Hickey claimed that his right to expression was violated, rightly so. And Hickey accused Hastings of corruption, tyranny, and even problems associated with his health. Okay? So much so. He was like, I am so stressed by this unilateral move that you have completely, killed my whole life, the purpose of my life. So that time what happened was that giving out information to the press was regarded as derogatory to the government of India. That time, the British government. You could not give information to the press. Okay, there were severe restrictions. Now, if this was the beginning, let's go forward. So here is this person, Professor L.F. Rushbrook Williams. He was the OSD to say, he was OSD, Officer of Special Duty to the PIB. Okay, in pre-independence years. So this fellow, his work is supposed to be seminal. What the vision that he laid out of PIB gives us the whole scope of the responsibility of the organization. Okay, so let's look at what he says. That particular organization, the PIB equivalent, it is really a link between the government and the press. Okay, that it has the objective of finding out topics in which the public is interested and on which it requires information. Okay, then its duty is to extract more important of these statements, bring to the notice of the department. So look at this. If this is the public, this is the government, this is the body, the PIB. So what he's saying is that PIB should essentially function in information dissemination, at the same time making sure that if whatever feedback they receive from here go on to the relevant government agencies. Okay, that it has a dual responsibility is what he's saying. Okay, it also should see at what topics the public is interested and the topics in which the public is in doubt, and you should explain it or address it. See what is laid down, the larger ambit of what PIB should do. Okay, so it's got in the business of education, informing, at the same time what you can say is dispelling false notions. Okay, if there is something about which the public is in doubt, well, this organization has a responsibility to address that doubt. I'm thinking from the governmental perspective right now. Okay, that yes, it does have a locus standi per se to go ahead and dispel the false notions that might exist. Clear? Let's go forward. Alright, we'll look at this later. Look at this first. Okay? Look at this first. Now what has happened recently? So the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MeitY, it notified amendments to the Information Technology Rules 2021, which allows the ministry to appoint a fact-checking body which will take a call on whether online information related to the central government is accurate. The key operating line being online information related to the central government. Okay, if there is a false notion being spread about the government has a responsibility to dispel that notion. Okay. Proposed rules say info labeled fake by government agencies cannot be hosted on social media platforms. The safe harbor, this is provided to say Twitter, Facebook, all of these online agencies, no? Okay. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of these, they are provided by the government a policy of safe harbor, which means that you can come, operate and operate with ease, no problems. And like if you were to break the rule of the law, rule of the land, then you will have to face consequences. Then you will be taken to task. Okay. So now barrage of criticism from the press followed straight away after the government announced this, that we are going to do this. So the question arises that okay, the criticism is fine, that okay, it will 100% infringe on the right to freedom, for sure. No one is debating that. Freedom of expression, for sure. But then, how can someone answer this with surety? That why should fact checking be left only to, say, private bodies or private individuals? If the whole point is of transparency and accountability, if this is my point, okay, if this is what I'm fighting for, will the government be more accountable or will a private body be more accountable? Tell me. Who is more responsible to you? The government body or the private body? The government body, obviously. You have various mechanisms for grievance redressal when it comes to a government body. For a private body that engages in, say, like false narratives, it's talking about, say, selective fact checking. What can you do? What can you do? Tell me. So this is another tangent that you should be looking at, right? Both government and press are responsible to the public and not to each other. This is the primary point, guys. That eventually it's you who both of them are responsible to. And so for your interests to be kept above their personal interests, there needs to be a collaborative system here now. You need to have a body which has, say, the government plus these private fact checkers plus, say, citizen representation. And only then it becomes a fair model. Only then. You leave it to just the government? Unfair. You leave it to just the private bodies? Unfair. And obviously you can't leave it to the citizens because they are the ones who are propagating the fake news half the time. Do you understand this? Are you able to understand this? So whenever you are confronted with a question on, say, does PIB have the locus standi to do this, do that? Well, obviously, it does have the locus standi insofar as information, dispelling false notions, propagating the policies of the government are concerned. But when it comes to fact-checking, leaving fact-checking just to, say, either of these three stakeholders will not be a very feasible method going forward. Are you able to understand this, guys? Clear hai sab koi? Bataiye mujhe chat pe. Let me know in the chat. Because I'm not able to read the chat today for some reason. It keeps getting stuck. Okay, just let me know. Let me know if you're reading this, if you're looking at this, just write yes very quickly. Okay, we'll go forward. So PIB, should it fact check? This is the topic. This is the question, in fact, from the Indian Express. This article in today's Indian Express, have a look at it. Okay. So PIB, should it fact check? The Bombay High Court said that the effect of a rule of law, and very important line by the way, if the effect of a rule or law is unconstitutional, it has to go, no matter how laudable the motive may be. Okay, brilliant line. That you look at the application of the law, okay, and the consequences of it, okay. And so whether the rule that you are following is in consonance with the established principles, no matter whether the application or the consequence of that is positive, doesn't matter. Are you following those particular doctrine, that particular doctrine or guidelines or rules that are set, that have a precedence? Okay. The bench questioned whether the mechanism of the PIB that has been in existence for so long is inadequate that it requires an amendment to include the FCU, the fact-checking unit. So what used to be the usual manner? So if you were to propagate a fake news, PIB would essentially put out a clarification that will be carried forward by the leading newspapers. Okay. So that was the method. Now the court is asking that you have a system in place. Why are you not following it rather than asking for an amendment to include the fact-checking unit, which is being manned by the officers of the IIS, the Indian Information Service. Again, UPSC. Okay, let's go forward. Last month, the center told the bench that identification of misleading or false content would not lead to its automatic taking down. The aggrieved party can go for legal remedy and the competent court will take a decision. So government is saying that we are not going to be arbitrars here. We'll follow the process that is there. However, it does have a responsibility that cannot be avoided, which is why the fact-checking unit of PIB is important, is what the government is saying. Okay. The government representative, the lawyer said that the government cannot act as a judge to ascertain veracity of any information available on social media, where some people, including satirists, journalists, have been shunned. Okay. Now, this is what is happening is there have been a group of people, again, who probably allegedly have a fair case. Okay. That they did something, the government came back at them. Not important who they are, because again, we are preparing for the civil services. So, the problem is that this selective application, can you afford this going forward, especially in this era where information warfare is real, where fake news is real, where this whole thing on an incident happening and then suddenly you have 5 different interpretations of it. And in a country where digital penetration is high, and even with awareness, you have, say, educated and aware people also getting fooled. Forget those who haven't had access to education. So can you afford this to be left completely in the hands of either of these 3 that I had told you? The government, the private bodies or the citizens. You can't have this working in isolation. That system wouldn't work at all. Clear? Okay. So what about the intermediaries? The Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, what is their position? They are not concerned with information they host. They are saying we'll follow the rule. The policy of safe harbor. So they want business. They're like, listen, we are not going to get involved in this mess. Okay, whatever the government tells us to do, we will do. Which is the right method, in fact. In the middle, if you see, these organizations had tried to become judges. In fact, in the Russia-Ukraine war, you find that most of these organizations have played a very inimical role. Okay, selective banning of Russian outlets, complete blackout of Russian news. Okay, it might be false, it might be true. You have no way to corroborate it. What gives you the perspective or the moral standpoint to say, okay, every information coming out of Russia is false? It's not your job. Your job is to hold. Your job is to host content. Do that. Leave the interpretation to, say, the Supreme Court or the bodies. Okay. So they have said they will just comply with the government's directions. So now these 2 questions. Should government not get into fact checking if left to private individuals, organizations? Of course, where is the accountability? You and I are not. You don't have any particular method also. How will you do? If there's some selective fact checking they do, what legal recourse do you have? Okay. And information warfare. Government has an obligation to its citizens. Okay. Can government be excluded thoroughly? Not at all. There is no model in which, when it comes to fact checking, you can exclude the government. No way is possible. Because the whole point of accountability, transparency, and the obligation from a government to its citizen lies on this. Okay, all right. So that completes the fact-checking unit and PIB conversation. Go ahead and look at that article from Indian Express today, and you will be able to understand what exactly the author is trying to communicate. Also, keep in mind this particular slide, guys. Okay, the Rushbook quote here, because this essentially gives you the overarching philosophy. Okay. The overarching philosophy of PIB's creation. When it was being created, those who were creating it or forming that body, what did they have in mind? Because if you know this, then you'll know what the future of PIB is going to be. Okay. This is essentially going to be the justification for PIB doing fact checking. Clear? Government is more responsible to public because yes, government has the ultimate responsibility of the people lies with the government, not with Twitter, Facebook or some fact-checking organization. No. You people are side players. The main player, the main course is to be served by the government. Okay. All right. Let's go forward. And finally, our third topic for the day, which I am going to explain to you through a question. So yesterday, 6th of July was World Zoonosis Disease Day. What is zoonosis? Diseases that are transmitted between animals and humans. Example, coronavirus pandemic. Name me another 2-3 particular diseases that are transmitted from animals to humans. Let me know very quickly. What are the other ones? Malaria? Would malaria be categorized as a zoonosis? A zoonotic disease? Okay. So they include pathogens, including bacteria, viruses, and parasites. All right. So I'll share the link of this article. It's a very important article, especially when you have to consider the whole conversation around zoonotic diseases. Because please realize, you are dealing with two entities here, animals and humans. Which means on a global level, the bodies that have come up, say CITES, which deals in trade of endangered species, okay? Or you have the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD. All of these are talking about sustainability, of a sustainable model, okay? So this is necessary. The work that they are doing is eventually to make sure that less of these diseases originate. Because new diseases are coming up on a day-to-day basis, you will see. And most of them, in fact, I think a recent surveys is around 60% of the new diseases that have come up, okay, have come up because of animals. They are zoonotic in nature. Do you realize? So why is it important for you to realize or understand what a zoonotic disease is? Rabies, correct? Nala Jana, Hall of Tech, aap bhi sahi ho. Good answers. Okay. So zoonotic disease. So look at this question. We'll try and just understand this very quickly from a question. Effective implementation of CITES and CBD can reduce the risk of zoonotic diseases. True or false? Like I told you, all these international platforms, all these international agreements, where the countries are collaborating to make sure that, say, certain protected species are not exploited or not traded, or that sustainable lifestyle is given a thrust, which means say, less of pesticides, less of making sure your water is dirty, your air is dirty. Huh? All these pathogens and bacteria and viruses are mutating and forming some new things. To avoid all of that, CITES, CBD, all of these have knowledge sharing mechanisms. Okay? To make sure that real-time information is being shared, that any mutations that come up, in the middle you must be knowing, no? This coronavirus is some new mutant variety is coming up. How is that happening? Real-time information sharing is going on. Who is doing that real-time information sharing? International platforms, agreements, WHO, CITES, CBD, all of them have mechanisms in place on the ground. Okay, so this is true. This will reduce those diseases that come from animals to humans. Or yeah. The One Health approach looks to target zoonotic diseases. Absolutely correct. It talks about this integration between man, wildlife, and nature. Okay, that there needs to be a collaborative approach between these three stakeholders so as to have the global health secured and safe. Okay? So the One Health approach, again, important learning for you. And safe disposal of animal waste can prevent zoonotic diseases. Thank you, China. If they had followed this, probably we wouldn't have had the coronavirus pandemic. Okay. So the correct statements, all three are correct here. Okay. So I'll share an article. In fact, it's just a PDF. I've compiled a PDF. I'll share it this afternoon. Have a look at zoonotic diseases, the different kinds of zoonotic diseases. Okay. The challenges, because you know the opportunities is none. It's diseases. So we'll look at the challenges. Okay. Okay. So if you learned something out of the three topics that we did today, cantonment boards, military stations, thereafter we looked at PIB, history of PIB, fact-checking unit of PIB, and the recent conversation around whether government should get into fact-checking. And finally, we looked at zoonotic diseases. If you understood this, leave me a like, please. Please leave me a like, I request you. Yes, I really want to cross 50 likes someday. I would really like that. So I obviously आप ही लोग कर सकते हो. ठीक है? If you have any questions, let me know, guys. I'd be happy to take questions. Although I have overshot my time by 3 minutes, so I think we'll call it a wraps. Okay. So that brings me to the end of this class. Please go ahead and join my Telegram channel. We do a lot of this, you know. Lot of knowledge sharing goes on. Like the organizations on the world level do it, well, we do it in the Telegram level. Okay. So go ahead, join my Telegram channel. And if you like this whole discussion, leave me a like or a comment. And a comment, in fact. And if you didn't like something, leave me a comment too. Okay, I'd appreciate all sorts of feedback. Till I see you the next time, guys, tomorrow morning 8 a.m. It's a wrap from me, Bhuvan, for StudyIQ. Thanks for watching, and I'll share a mains question. Okay, आज एक mains question बनता है. In fact, there is one question I'll write for you. So I'd received a mail from someone saying, can you suggest a topic on essay writing? So this question I have been thinking of myself, okay? Especially when you look at the conversation around fake news and this news and that news. So is truth monochromatic? If suppose UPSC gives you just this 3 words to write, say 1600 words on it, what would you write? Is truth to be looked at from one singular lens, or do you look at it from, say, multiple lenses? Are there different versions to the truth? Okay, let me see. If any of you would like to attempt this, it would be good, because it's a difficult topic. It's a philosophical topic which UPSC asks. Nowadays they want philosophers. So go ahead, attempt this question. Let's see if you can at least write down 10 points that you would include. Okay, can you send me 10 points that you would include in an essay on the topic, is truth monochromatic? Okay, here's my email ID for any of you who are interested. It's bhuvan.jha@studyiq.com. I'll repeat it, bhuvan.jha@studyiq.com. Send me. Give me 10 points. Don't have to write the whole essay. Give me 10 feasible points that you would write to either support or negate the question, is truth monochromatic? Alright? Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. You take care, study well, be well, and join me tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. The last class of this week, Saturday morning,